Will everybody please be seated so that we can poll the monitors? Okay, everybody please be seated so that we can poll the monitors. Yeah. Okay, everybody please be seated. Hi, how are you? Okay, Precinct 1. Do we have a report from Precinct 1? How many present, how many absent, please? Okay, Precinct 2. Precinct 2, 17 present, 10 absent. Precinct 3. Precinct 3, 11 present, 9 absent. Precinct 4. Precinct 4, 10 present, 7 absent. Precinct 5. We'll do that separately. Precinct 5, 19 present, 4 absent. Precinct 6.
13 present, 9 absent.
Precinct 6, 13 present, 9 absent. Precinct 7. Precinct 7, 13 present, 12 absent. Precinct 8.
15 present, 11 absent.
Precinct 8, 15 present, 11 absent. At large.
18 present, 3 absent.
At large, 18 present, 3 absent. Remote is 1 present. And Precinct 1. 16 present, how many are absent? 18 present, 8 absent. And 8 are absent, correct? Thank you. Thirty, 135 members being present, 74 being absent. We have a quorum. At this time, will the monitors please bring up their first attendance sheet, and the meeting is now in order. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll now ask all members present to please rise, if they're so inclined, for the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States. At this time, I'll ask any members who were not sworn in at the annual town meeting in May to please rise to be sworn in by Town Clerk Amy Hennessy-Neves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. If I can just have you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as town meeting members in accordance with the bylaws in the town of Milford? You can say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, Town Clerk Neves will please read the opening of the warrant.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is the special town meeting, October 21st, 2024, Milford, Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Worcester County. To either constable of the town of Milford in said county, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth aforesaid, you are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Milford, qualified by law to vote in town affairs, to meet in the upper hall of the Milford Town Hall, 52 Main Street, on the 21st day of October, 2024 AD at 7:00 p.m. In accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 10, a special town meeting shall be held in Milford's Upper Town Hall. For those seeking reasonable accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, due to incapacity or disability, who provide sufficient proof of such condition and who pre-register for the special town meeting at individual locations selected by such members at the time of their pre-registration as part of the reasonable accommodation process, remote participation may be permitted. Instructions for those seeking reasonable accommodations to register to participate at other locations shall be provided by the town clerk. The special town meeting will then and there act upon the following articles. Article 1.
Does any member object to dispensing with the reading of the articles? Okay, if not, then we'll dispense with the reading. Hearing no objection, Mrs. Neely, please continue with the officer's return of service.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Worcester County, date September 30th, 2024. By virtue of this warrant, I have notified the legal voters of the town of Milford to meet at the times and places and for the purposes within named as directed. Robert Tassino, Chief of Police. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Neves. Are there any resolutions to present to the meeting? Mr. Walsh. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, whereas the citizens of Milford have learned with great sorrow and deep regret the passing of Joseph F. Nero. Whereas Joseph F. Nero was a member of the town meeting from 1968 to 2001. Whereas Joseph F. Nero served as a member of the Board of Assessors from 1981 to 2021. Whereas Joseph F. Nero worked for the Milford Fire Department for 28 years as a fireman and 10 years as the fire alarm superintendent. Whereas Joseph F. Nero served this community faithfully, unselfishly, as a loyal and sincere citizen. Therefore, be it resolved that as a mark of respect, the business of this meeting be suspended while the members stand in solemn and silent tribute to his memory, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to his family. Respectfully submitted, the Milford Select Board.
I'm going to ask that all the resolutions be read before we stand in tribute to the deceased members.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, whereas the citizens of Milford have learned with great sorrow and deep regret of the passing of Michael J. Britta. Whereas Michael J. Britta was a member of the town meeting from 1969 to 1978. Whereas Michael J. Britta served as a trustee of the Milford Town Library from 1971 to 1974. Whereas Michael J. Britta worked for the Milford Public Schools as a math and science teacher for 12 years and as a principal at Stacy Middle School for 25 years. Whereas Michael J. Britta coached baseball, basketball, and football at Milford High School. Whereas Michael J. Britta served this community faithfully and unselfishly as a loyal and a very sincere citizen. Therefore, be it resolved that as a mark of respect, the business of this meeting be suspended while members stand in silent tribute to his memory, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to his family. Respectfully submitted, the Milford Select Board.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Mazzucchelli, or Mr. Attorney O'Loughlin?
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, whereas the citizens of Milford have learned with great sorrow and deep regret the passing of James D. Griffith, whereas James D. Griffith was a member of town meeting at various times for 48 years from 1967 to 2023, whereas James D. Griffith served as a member of the Planning Board for 36 years from 1969 to 2005, whereas James D. Griffith served as a member of the Capital Planning Committee, whereas James D. Griffith served this community faithfully and unselfishly as a loyal and sincere citizen. Therefore, be it resolved that as a mark of respect, the business of this meeting be suspended while members stand in solemn and silent tribute to his memory, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to his family. Respectfully submitted, Milford Select Board, Michael K. Walsh, Chair, Paul Mazzucchelli, Thomas O'Loughlin.
Thank you, Attorney O'Loughlin. Mr. Mazzucchelli.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, whereas the citizens of Milford have learned with great sorrow and deep regret the passing of Kenneth C. Evans, whereas Kenneth C. Evans was a member of the town meeting at various times for 16 years from 1969 to 2005, whereas Kenneth C. Evans served as a member of the Board of Health at various times for 48 years from 1965 to 2003, whereas Kenneth C. Evans served as a member of the school committee from 1985 to 1994, whereas Kenneth C. Evans served as a member of the Milford Housing Authority from 2003 to 2008, whereas Kenneth C. Evans served this community faithfully and unselfishly as a loyal and sincere citizen. Therefore, be it resolved that as a mark of respect, the business of this meeting be suspended while members stand in solemn and silent tribute to his memory, and a copy of this resolution be forwarded to his family. Respectfully submitted, Milford Select Board, Michael K. Walsh, Chair, Paul A. Mazzucchelli, and Thomas J. O'Loughlin, Esquire. October 21st, 2024. Whereas the citizens of Milford have learned with great sorrow and deep regret the passing of David P. Hayes, whereas David P. Hayes was a member of the town meeting from 1966 to 1998, whereas David P. Hayes was a member of the school committee from 1970 to 1976, whereas David P. Hayes was a member of the Milford Charter Commission, whereas David P. Hayes was a member of the Town Government Study Committee, whereas David P. Hayes was a member of the Milford Fire Station Building Committee, whereas David P. Hayes worked for the Milford Public Schools from 1965 to 1995, 11 years as a math teacher and 20 years as an assistant principal at Milford High School, whereas David P. Hayes served this community faithfully and unselfishly as a loyal and sincere citizen. Therefore, be it resolved that as a mark of respect, the business of this meeting be suspended while members stand in solemn and silent tribute to his memory, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to his family. Respectfully submitted, Milford Board of Selectmen, Michael K. Walsh, Chair, Paul A. Mazzucchelli, and Thomas J. O'Loughlin, Esquire. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzucchelli. And now, as a token of our respect and admiration, I would ask that the business of this meeting be suspended, and that everyone here stand with bowed heads as a silent tribute to the memory of Michael J. Berta, Kenneth C. Evans, James D. Griffith, David P. Hayes, and Joseph F. Nero. This time, I'd just like to go over some instructions for the meeting. First one is town meeting members and registered voters in the town of Milford may address this assembly. Anyone else wishing to address this body needs the unanimous consent of the town meeting members. If you want to be recognized to speak, you should stand in front of your seat, wave your hand, exclaim, "Mr. Moderator," and I will recognize you. And when you come up to the podium to speak, please give us your name and your address where you live. I'm going to remind people that only town meeting members can make motions and only town meeting members can vote on these motions. There are time limits in debate. A sponsor of an article is giving 10 minutes to make a presentation. Anyone else addressing the meeting is allowed 5 minutes. You can ask a question of a member or the sponsor. If that person that you want to answer the question has to be through the moderator, the member is not obligated to give an answer. And lastly, I'm going to remind the members that when you get up here to speak, you have to speak to the question. In other words, what you are going to say has to be relevant to whatever motion is being considered. Okay? All right, at this time, I'll call upon the Finance Committee if they have a report. Attorney Lazat.
Andrew Lazat on behalf of the Finance Committee. Good evening. I'd like to just spend a couple of minutes trying to tie out what we did in May at our May town meeting, looking forward to this year, with what we're trying to accomplish tonight and what is being proposed tonight. So back in May, in addition to all of our standard operating expenses, the annual budget that we deal with, there are a few non-operating items that we deal with from time to time. For example, we had about $2.5 million of capital projects in May. We typically deal with capital projects in October unless there's something that there is a pressing need for. In May, we did have a couple such items, such as repairs to the Milford Youth Center and repairs to the Central Street Bridge. We also allocated $4.3 million to levy relief, and I'll discuss that more in a second. And we allocated $1.7 million to stabilization. Next slide, please. So what is levy relief? Levy relief, just so everyone is clear, that's the firewall between us and Proposition 2.5. Each year, our finance department takes the existing valuation base. As you know, as a result of Proposition 2.5, they're allowed to increase the amount that people are taxed by 2.5%. Then they're allowed to add to that new growth to the town. That gives us what is the maximum amount that people can be taxed in the town of Milford. The difference between what people could be taxed and what people are taxed is the levy relief. So if you could be taxed in this town $100 and we actually tax people $95, that $5 differential, that's the levy relief. That's the $4.3 million that we set aside in the May meeting. The concern is when we have some big capital projects coming in the future, we may need to reduce the amount of that levy relief. So that's why it's important to keep it a substantial number now, in addition to the fact that we're trying to keep people's tax burdens as low as we practically can. Now, stabilization, that's the $1.7 million number I showed you a minute ago. You can think of that as the rainy day fund. You can think of it as the future planning fund. We have a short-term stabilization fund, which has about $5 or $6 million in it. We have a longer-term stabilization fund, which has closer to $30 million in it. We expect the longer-term stabilization fund to be used for larger capital projects, such as the potential high school rebuild or renovation in the future. It also helps our credit rating. The short-term stabilization fund can be used to cover operational shortfalls or particular capital needs that we don't necessarily have the money for in any particular year. Next slide, please. So tonight, one of the primary things we're dealing with is free cash. So the first question is, what is free cash? Well, it's not free. It's either revenues for the town have come in higher than we expected, or our operational expenses were lower than they expected, or perhaps we had capital projects where we didn't spend as much as we intended to spend. All of that gets rolled into what's referred to as free cash, kind of like a tax refund that you would get at the end of the year. It's good to have it, but don't get too excited because it's your own money. But this year we have about $7.4 million. We use this as a planning tool in the fall. The free cash is used to expand upon those three items that I referenced earlier that are sort of an afterthought at the Maytown meeting, but which get firmed up at this time, which is the capital projects, the amount of tax or levy relief we give to taxpayers, and leaving funds set aside in stabilization or just leaving it in the general town account. Next slide, please. Okay, so now that we have $7.4 million, what are we proposing to do with it tonight? We have about $2.2 million in capital, and recall that's in addition to the $2.5 million or so that we proposed for the May town meeting. The levy relief, we're proposing to increase that by $1.7 million. Now remember, that was $4.3 million set in the May meeting, so an additional $1.7 million would bring the taxpayer or levy relief up to about $6 million. We always use as a rule of thumb, it's an $80 tax savings for each $1 million in tax levy against citizens. So $6 million times $80, one way of looking at this is the average tax bill could be $480 lower than it would otherwise be if we went right to the maximum that Proposition 2.5 allows us. We're also proposing to allocate an additional $1 million to the stabilization funds in addition to the $1.7 million that was allocated in May. And the remaining amount, which is about $2.5 million, we're proposing to keep in the general fund for a variety of reasons. We have a snow and ice budget that's typically goes over a budget that we need to expend for. We may have additional capital items in May, and anything that doesn't get spent will just become free cash for the following year. So last slide, please. So as I mentioned on the prior page, the capital spend proposed for tonight is approximately $2.2 million. What's in it? This is about 80 to 90% of what is in it. I didn't include items that are, say, under $100,000. Many of these items you will recognize. There are typical capital replacements. We have sprinkler systems for both the library and the highway department. The fire station needed some work with the boiler and the rooftop HVC system. There was some damage to a fire engine. $100,000 has been allocated for that. Two items I'd point out that are not typical capital, but we felt that needed to be dealt with tonight. Number one is the police family unit. That is a combination of police officers and clinicians that deal with various domestic type issues in town. That was operating under what was understood to be a perpetual or indefinite grant from the state, and it was unexpectedly reduced in the funding. So that amount is the amount to cover the police officer component of that program. The clinician component would continue to be funded by other grants. With respect to the Board of Health inspections, people may recall the Neighborhood Housing Task Force several years ago. There was housing inspections. There was an effort to make sure that everyone was operating according to housing code, prevent overcrowding and the like. That program languished a bit in part because of COVID, but the determination was made that this needs to be revitalized because of various housing concerns in Milford that have both monetary and non-monetary aspects to it. So that amount is proposed to retain a consultant to make sure we have a good inventory of the housing stock that has to be addressed and to reinvigorate the inspection process. The last observation is the town park. You'll see that's listed as undetermined, and that's part of the reason why we're planning to keep about $2.5 million in the general funds come May. You may recall we previously authorized about $2 million to be spent for a town park renovation, for building a town park, and for a basketball court. Well, the funding has been expended, and it appears that it's only going to cover the main town park component. There is a building component that we may need to complete before the end of 2025 in order to keep the grant that we received as part of that program. So we're anticipating that there's going to be an article in May to deal with that issue. So that's the report for tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Attorney Lazat. What's the pleasure of the meeting? Article 1. Mr. Walsh. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, I move that the town vote to transfer from the excess and deficiency account a sum of money in the amount of $150,000 to be utilized for the purpose of continuing to address the town-wide ADA improvement plan, or for any other ADA improvement project to benefit the town. Said sum to be divided equally among the Parks Department, the School Department, and overall general government.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any vote care to be heard?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, excuse me. The town received a grant to work with a consultant to develop the Americans with Disabilities Self-Evaluation and Transition Plan. This plan was approved by the Milford Select Board in 2018. The plan provided a report for all town buildings, schools, and park and recreation areas. The town completed several important ADA projects in 2024, which included improvements at the Pheno Field Pool with accessible toilet and shower rooms, exterior drinking fountain, new accessible concrete walkways, zero-depth entry into the pool, assist rails along the edge of the pool. We also repaired the front steps in the walkway at the Milford Police Station, upgraded the women's bathroom at Town Hall, installed an ADA-compliant water cooler at the Spruce Street and the Birch Street fire stations. Future ADA projects include new sidewalks, courts, benches, and picnic areas at Town Park and at Prospect Heights, and upgrading the bathrooms at Town Hall. This article seeks $150,000 to be used to continue with the ADA projects as well as other ADA projects at Town Hall, schools, and in our town parks. I urge your support on this article.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Does any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Visconti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Visconti, precinct 8. I need my address. Number 7 Muriel Lane, if anybody's interested. The previous speaker talked about monies being spent to bring Town Park into ADA compliance. My question is this above and beyond the grant that was awarded to redo the entire Town Park? And are we paying double? Why did we do something now when the Town Park is being completely renovated? Are we paying double for this? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Visconti. Any other voter care to be heard? No. If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried. Article 2. Attorney Moody.
Jerry Moody, 8 Fern Street, Precinct 6, I think, yes. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to grant an easement to the Massachusetts Electric Company to install, construct, reconstruct, repair, or replace, maintain, or operate facilities for the transmission of high and low voltage electric current over property on Dilla Street under the jurisdiction and control of the Milford Board of Water Commissioners, the easement to be over property designated as 68 Dilla Street.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Refer to sponsor.
Finance Committee recommendation is refer to sponsor. Any vote care to be heard?
Mr. Moderator?
Attorney Moody.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this has to do ultimately with the project that you may or may not be aware has been going on for a while on the Dilla Street wells to make significant improvements to the Dilla Street well fields to improve the overall capacity in the town of Milford. That's ongoing right now. You can probably see the construction going on Dilla Street. And one aspect of it is changing of electric lines. Right now, lines that run under the property are going to run overhead in a slightly different location. And the electric company simply requires an easement for purposes of their going into for installation repairs over the years. So we've done this in many other situations, schools and whatnot. So this easement is something that the Water Commissioners and the Select Board very much in favor of. There's simply no reason not to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Moody. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried. Article 3, Mr. Long.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, Brian Long, Chair of the Personnel Board. Article 3. I move that the town vote to amend the personnel bylaws of the town as follows. Section A.
Mr. Long, is the remainder of the motion exactly the same as appears in the warrant that was mailed to all town meeting members?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
It's the same. Does any member object to waiving the reading of the amendments to the personnel bylaws of the town of Milford? Hearing no objection, the motion is made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Refer to sponsor.
Finance Committee recommendation is refer to sponsor. Any voter care to be heard?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Long.
Town meeting members, the Personnel Board, in conjunction with Human Resources, routinely reviews its bylaws and updates them as necessary. The changes in this article clean up some wording issues related to benefit-eligible employees and further clarifies holiday and personal time for town employees working between 20 and 35 hours per week. The Personnel Board asks for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Does any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 4. Mr. Mainini.
Excuse me. Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw relating to the accessory dwelling units as follows. 2.3, use regulation schedule. Activity, the use.
Mr. Mainini, is the text of the amendments to the motion exactly the same as appears in the warrant?
Yes, it is.
It is the same. Does any member object to dispensing with the reading of the amendments to the zoning bylaw? Hearing no objection, the motion is made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Refer to sponsor.
Finance Committee recommendation is refer to sponsor. Mr. Mayne, do you have, are those copies of the motion?
Yes.
Can you give one to,
Oh. Sorry.
does the planning board have a report?
Yes. Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5, the Milford Planning Board on October 1st, 2024, conducted a duly posted and noticed public hearing regarding the subject of Article 4, at which time the planning board voted to make a favorable recommendation to the town meeting. Article 4 is an application of the planning board to amend Section 2.3, Section 3.19, and Section 4.1 of the zoning bylaw relating to accessory dwelling units. Therefore, the planning board recommends Article 4 be adopted as printed in the warrant.
Does any other vote care to be heard? Hold on, Mr. Visconti. Mr. Mainini?
Yes. Article 4 is a amendment that's been developed by the planning board in response to a recently adopted Affordable Housing Act by the legislature. The legislation requires that municipalities in the Commonwealth provide for accessory dwelling units as a right of certain residential zoning districts. The amendment proposed in Article 4 will bring the town in compliance with the new legislation by allowing accessory dwelling units via site plan review within the RA, RB, RC, and RE and OR residential zoning districts, and by establishing standards for their review. This is crucial for the town to comport our zoning bylaw with the new legislation as soon as possible. The planning board urges you in the adoption of Article 4 as printed.
Thank you, Mr. Mainini. Does any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Visconti?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Visconti, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. Mr. Moderator, I move to amend the article on the floor in the following way. Once again, Mr. Moderator, I move to amend the article on the floor, Article 4, in the following way. Amend Article 4. That, by the way, that's a misprint. That should be Article 4 on there instead of 24. Sorry about that. Add Section 3.19.9 as follows. Short-term transient tenancy / occupancy for periods of less than 12 months are strictly prohibited. Thank you.
I'm not exactly. All right. Motion's been made and seconded to amend Article 4 as follows by adding Section 3.19.9 as follows. Short-term transient tenancy occupancy for periods less than 12 months are strictly prohibited. Town Council, can I speak to you?
okay or not. Is it okay? How come you could turn that and I could not? Thank you.
Just discussed this with town council. Mr. Visconti, there is no legal terminology used, short-term transient tenancy occupancy in the statute. So I'm going to rule the motion not in order.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that one more time?
There is no legal terminology, short-term transient tenancy occupancy in the statute that covers example of 3.19.7, short-term rental of any accessory dwelling unit as defined by General Laws, Chapter 64, G, Section 1.
I understand that, Mr. Moderator. However, Chapter 150, Mass General Laws, Section 7 and 8 provide for municipalities to place reasonable conditions on the ADU bylaw, and that is what I'm proposing here. There's no reason that this should not be treated like any other article that comes before a town meeting, to include proposed amendments. Thank you.
Attorney Murray.
I yield the microphone to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Let me just, I didn't get a copy of this amendment. Hi.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Kind of creeping me out here. If you look at the original motion presented, let me direct your attention to 3.19.7. It says the short-term rental of any accessory dwelling unit as defined by GL Chapter 64G, Section 1 is prohibited. So that is discretionary language that the legislation allows communities to develop. The community could allow short-term rental of these units. The community could somehow regulate it to allow it partially and not in other parts, or the community can do what's proposed here to strictly prohibit any short-term rentals for these ADUs. The problem with the amendment as presented, the language that it uses, I don't know where it is here. The language that it uses, short-term transient tenancy, that's not recognized in the legislation or Massachusetts general laws. So whenever we're doing a local bylaw, zoning or general, it's very important that the language matches the statutory language so that there's no confusion. That's why 3.19.7 reads short-term rental. In reality, I think the outcome is the same, so I don't think that the amendment is needed, even if it did use the proper language. And just as further way for folks to kind of get an idea on that, if you look at the last part of it, the zoning bylaws in Milford had always defined them as supplemental suites. So the new legislation does not recognize that wording, that definition. The new legislation recognizes accessory dwelling unit. So that's why this amendment also seeks to omit the terminology of the supplemental suite and replace it with the statutorily recognized accessory dwelling unit. So I would ask this amendment to be defeated.
Well, Mr. Visconti,
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Murray. Ladies and gentlemen, the language in my proposed amendment is crystal clear, and it clarifies without a doubt that short-term occupancy and tenancy in these ADUs will be strictly prohibited. There's no reason that this amendment should not be voted on tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Visconti. The amendment has been ruled not in order, so we're not taking it up tonight. Thank you. Does any other voter care to be heard?
Mr. Moderator, may I then ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's not important. Well, it is important, but it won't do any good. So it's too bad, ladies and gentlemen, that you won't be able to vote on this amendment. And when you have short-term people in and out on a weekly basis, and including the dreaded hotbedding, you'll know why. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Visconti. Any other voter care to be heard on the motion as presented? The voter in precinct 5? I think it's 5. I can't tell. 8? Okay, thank you.
Thomas LaPrade, Precinct 8. I just want to ask a couple questions on 3.19.7. Firstly, how are we defining short term? Just like how many months would that be? And second of all, why are we fully prohibiting it? Is there any particular reason behind that? That's all.
Attorney Murray.
So again, short-term rental is specifically defined in Massachusetts general laws, and the citation is there, 64G, Section 1. I believe it's rental periods of 30 days or less. In terms of why the decision was made to prohibit short-term rentals entirely, that was strictly a policy decision that was made by the Planning Board as they looked to develop this bylaw.
Thank you, Attorney Murray. Any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Trolby Wright.
Zach Trolby Wright, Precinct 1. Just pulling up the bylaw on my phone. So the current supplemental suite bylaw cannot be enforced beyond February 2025 unless it's consistent with the Mass General Law. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other voter care to be heard on the motion as presented? If not, the question comes upon the motion. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried. And just to note, this is a zoning bylaw under the Mass General Laws for accessory dwelling units. Just requires a simple majority. Article 5. Chief DeCino.
Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, town meeting members. Article 5, I move that the town vote to amend Article 14A of the general bylaws entitled Unlawful Noise by deleting the opening paragraph of Section 1 thereof and replacing that paragraph with the following. Section 1, unlawful noise. It shall be unlawful for any person or persons to create, assist in creating, continue, or allow to continue any excessive, unnecessary, or unusually loud noise, which either annoys, disturbs, injures, or endangers the reasonable quiet, comfort, repose, or health and safety of others within the town of Milford. It shall also be unlawful for any owner or person in control of any property to cause or to permit tenants or others of the property to cause such noise or disturbance. The following acts are declared to be loud, disturbing, injurious, unnecessary, and unlawful noises in violation of the section, but this enumeration shall not be exclusive.
Hold on, sir. Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Chief DeCino.
Rob DeCino, Chief of Police, and Precinct 4. So how did we come about this? What was the slippery slope that we ended up here? I think this also bears a little credence to what Mr. Visconti is trying to address. These are the noise complaints that we field regularly and by the dozen. And when I say by the dozen, I mean by the dozen a day. And our policy currently, we respond to said location, and of course, we try to mitigate this. We try to talk to the people at the residence or at the establishment, let them know we had complaint, and that's ding number one. And then we come back. And now we start writing fines. And then we come back. And then we start placing people under arrest. Milford has a problem. We're growing. Growing hurts. I came up with this amendment and worked on it with council, and I want to thank council, because in my lack of having a life outside of work, I took it upon myself to seek out the owners of these properties. The owners of these properties that did not live in these neighborhoods. And I said to these owners, a couple of them, I'm being vague on owners, obviously, in the places I visited, and I sat with these people and I said, your tenants, we've been there 5 times in the last 2 weeks. And I was laughingly told, can't see it from my house, Robbie. Ah, so the story goes in the shoe drop. Why? Because in the current bylaw, there is no teeth to fine the owner or to hold the leasing company responsible. They have to be responsible. You have to be responsible when you own property. You can't chase the mighty dollar and disregard your neighborhood, because when you rent, that's still your neighborhood. You have a responsibility to the people in that neighborhood to take a vested interest into who you're renting to, whether it be leasing it to a business, a family, it doesn't matter. And that's what this amendment does. It gives me the legal teeth, for lack of a better word, to hold owners, stakeholders, property managers accountable. I urge your support on this bill, and I promise you, your citizens that are watching, urge your support on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Tassino. Any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Allegrezza.
Good evening, Greg Allegrezza, Precinct 8. I just have a question for Chief Tassino. It said on the proposal that the fine is up to $300. Is that the maximum fine we can do? Is there something that can be raised? Because in a lot of cases where people own multiple buildings, $300 might not be a deterrent to them. They really won't care because they're going to make it up in, a couple weeks of rent. So I suggest if we can raise it, jack it up.
Thank you, Mr. Allegrezza. Chief Tassino. Please, no applause. Thank you.
Chief Tassino, Precinct 4. So to answer your question, that's a great question. It's repeated, right? So that $300 over the course of a weekend can turn into $1,200 like that. It's each instance. It's not that we go to this loud party with the music playing and, here's your $300, because to your point, you're 100% right. Hey, everybody, put into the till. Well, how about being placed under arrest? Because we've done that a couple times. We had a person say to us, go ahead, I'll get everybody here to pay in. And I'm like, well, we're coming back, and there's not going to be pay. You're going to win the Silver Bracelet Award, and you're coming with us. And sure enough, 2 hours later, we were back, and he made the team, and that was that. So to your point, I hope that answers your question. It's repeated, and those fines stack up.
Thank you, Chief Tassino. Any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Bertarelli.
Very briefly, after hearing Chief Tizzino's remarks.
Mr. Bertarelli, can you just state your name and precinct?
Yes, Edward Bertarelli, Precinct 2. After hearing Chief Tizzino's remarks and hopefully not violating the church-state separation, I say amen.
Thank you, Mr. Bertarelli. Any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Johansson.
Andrew Johansson, Precinct 4. Mr. Moderator, all in all, I read and studied this proposal before town meeting, and I think it's a good proposal. I just have one question, and that's this. And for sure, we have a problem with property owners that have not cared and have caused this problem. However, we do have property owners and landlords that are responsible and try to do the right thing. And there are cases where these property owners rent to individuals, businesses in good faith, and then afterwards are in a situation where they have a problem with a problem tenant. Now, the way the housing laws are in Massachusetts, on average, it takes about ballpark 4 to 6 months for a responsible landlord property owner to go through the legal process to evict a problem tenant. And I just have a question for the sponsor, Mr. Moderator, and that's this. Responsible property owners and landlords that wind up in this unfortunate situation and are in that 4 to 6 month window where they're having to go to through the legal system to resolve this issue, what remedy is there for them? I mean, do they just keep perpetually getting whacked $300 per offense as they're going through the process they've got to go through to resolve the matter? How exactly does that work? And maybe the sponsor could bring some clarity to that. Beyond that, this is a very good proposal as far as I'm concerned. Now yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johansson. Chief Tizzino.
Robbie Tizzino, Precinct 4. So that's a great point. I don't know if you know the reputation of the Milford Police Department. We're very much a liberal organization. I certainly am. And as I said when I opened this came about by the person that said to me, for lack of a better word, I don't care. I don't care. I say this publicly, and I say this in front of all of you. Any homeowner, any business owner that wants to work with the Milford Police, that wants to work with the town to remedy a situation, we are here to work with everybody. This is for the person that says, can't see it from my house, boom, and the door slams. And that's what happened, the door slammed. Lucky enough I was standing further enough back, it didn't hit me. But that's what this is for, not for the people, to quote you, sir, in a bad situation, because you're 100% right. And we will continue to work with homeowners in a bad situation.
Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Chief Tizzino.
Mr. Moderator.
Attorney O'Loughlin.
Exactly what the chief is saying to you, you know, and to that gentleman's question. If you're acting in good faith, even if the police department does issue the fine, you're going to end up before a clerk magistrate. You show them you're acting in good faith, they're going to accept that. In other words, you show them you're moving for an eviction, they're going to work with you. So you're not going to be penalized. And that's truly how the system works, particularly here in Milford and at the Milford District Court. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we have a number of condo complexes in this town. That same party, that same noise within a condo, and the condo association finds them. And they don't excuse anything. So you can tell them all day long that I own the condo, but I rent it to these people. No, it's the owner that gets fined. And what they do is they put a lien on the condo. So there is no getting out of it. So why should people in our neighborhoods be treated differently than people in the condo complexes? Because there is no out there. At least here, and the chief is working with people in good faith. If you're showing good faith, I know he'll work with you. I know him that well. Beyond that, if he does issue a fine and you're moving in the direction of moving these people out so that the other neighbors can live in peace, the clerk magistrate's going to step forward, and you'll see that they'll help that landlord. So I would urge you to support this measure.
Thank you, Attorney O'Loughlin. Any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Visconti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Visconti, town meeting member from Precinct 8. Through you, Mr. Moderator, if I could ask a question to the sponsor of this article. I'm curious as to how it is decided if the noise is excessive, unnecessary, or unusually loud and disturbing. Is it completely subjective on the part of the police officer who may investigate, or are there decibel readings taken? For example, some of the members here might very well think that I'm continuing to make loud, excessive, and unusually disturbing noise up here, but others may like the noise. So if the sponsor could speak to that, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Visconti. Chief Tassino.
Robbie Tassino, Precinct 4. Yeah, so the way this works with noise complaints is we get the complaints from the citizens. We get the complaints from your neighbors. We don't drive around arbitrarily with the windows down in the police car looking for noise. I mean, I hope at some point we're going to have that kind of time on our hands, but here in Milford we don't. We're a little busy. We're responding to calls. And, you know, to your point, Mr. Visconti, you're absolutely right. It's subjective, but I give you this. If you're somebody who's home with ailment and it's 7 o'clock at night and this is the time that you're trying to sleep and you call for a noise complaint, and as I turn onto your street, I all of a sudden, you know, can hear, you know, lambada or, you know, the Italian tarantella, there's a problem. Okay? That's too loud and unreasonable. And again, like I said, we don't show up and start writing tickets. We don't show up and take people to jail. That is not the Milford Police Department. It has never been before my tenure, and I can't see it ever changing. Hey, can you turn it down, your neighbors? A lot of people comply. But a lot of people, the officer doesn't get to the end of the street and it's back up again. That's our measuring tool. So it's not 1 strike, you're out. It's not 2 strikes, you're out. It's like 3 or 4. I hope that answers that.
Mr. Moderator.
Hold on. Mrs. McCarthy.
Lena McCarthy, 54 Fruit Street Extension, Precinct 3. This is the best thing since sliced bread. What is wrong with you people? I live on a street where there's so much noise that the police are called all the time. Not only that, but when they drive by my house, the noise from their car actually makes my television shake. That's how bad it is. If you live in the lower section of town of South Main Street, Hollis Street, all the streets around there where the houses are like 10 feet apart, you hear everything. And believe me, the people across the street, they put their television and their music as loud as they can, and then they turn around and they start singing with all the windows open. A friend of mine bought a beautiful home with a swimming pool. Next door to him, finally, someone bought the other house, And he said the noise is so bad that they don't even use their swimming pool anymore. So as far as loud music, loud noise is concerned, I think we ought to pat the chief on the back for doing all this stuff. It's not easy to go back and forth to someone's house and have them shut the door and say, the hell with you. So I want you to pass this, and I hope, and if you need help, Chief, I'm the first one to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McCarthy. Any other voter care to be heard? The voter in precinct 4 over there. Yes. Then, oh. All right, I'll get to you, sir. Is that Mr. Rasmussen? Okay. Then you can go.
Peter Rasmussen, precinct 1. I don't think it's fair to find somebody who do not live on the property, and as we heard before, it takes like half a year at least to evict somebody. We are in the process right now with somebody in a house we own, so I think it's totally unfair. We do what we can, but it's not fair to fine us.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. The voter in precinct 4. Sir, can you please remove your hat? Thank you.
Jay Adirola, Precinct 4. Chief, I have a couple questions. Is there a time parameter? Is it a 24-hour noise, or is it only certain evening hours? And to follow up on that, does that include, I live in a partially commercial residential area. I live across the street from a bar, and 10 o'clock at night, the music would be blasting, karaoke going on, live mic, and some people that sing there, it's like hands going across the chalkboard, you know what I mean? And the windows are wide open, and then I gotta go to work in the morning, and I don't know, I don't think I should have to deal with it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Iderola. Chief Tassino.
Robbie Tassino, Precinct 4, once again. So time is irrelevant, right? Time is irrelevant because the noise nuisance is irrelevant. If you're somebody who's home with your sick child during the day, and I'm choose to play cornhole in the side yard of my house, and want to listen to all my old Van Halen CDs, guess what? That's unreasonable. And to your point about the living near a tavern, all I can say is keep calling us. Call us, and I say that to all of you, and I say that to people watching, call us, because we can build up a log history, and we can go back, and we can try to mediate this. Yeah, time is irrelevant. Unreasonable is unreasonable, right? Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Chief Tassino. Any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Charlie Wright.
Zach Trolley Wright, Precinct 1. I just have a few questions for the sponsor. Statute of limitations for appeals, maybe something to change. I like what this is doing, and I like what it's enforcing. I just think maybe for the property owners, there should be a statute of limitations established, like 60 days to appeal. I also believe that the 3 strikes rule should be defined somewhere in the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trouble Wright. Any other voter care to be heard?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Agajanian.
Michael Agajanian, Precinct 2. I support this. I move the question.
You can't get up here and support something then move the question. You just have to simply move the question. So it's too late. Mr. Allegrezza.
Greg Allegrezza, Precinct 8. I think we're probably all going to vote yes on this, but I would make a suggestion to Chief Tizino, maybe put some language in, just like this gentleman had said, saying under the discretion of the police department to take care of property owners that are working in good faith, like Mr. Johansson, Mr. Rasmussen said. That's all I was saying. Maybe something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Allegrezza. The gentleman right there, gentleman in precinct, what is that, 2, 3, has moved the question. It's an attempt to shut off debate. It's not debatable. Requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the motion to move the previous question will please rise and remain standing until counted by the monitors.
This is a new one. Something everyone agrees on. So now they're trying to shut off anyone else from talking. So they've got to get like a majority of people to agree. Two-thirds, yeah.
All those opposed to the motion to move the previous question will please rise and remain standing until counted by the monitors. Precinct 1. Can you please stand up and speak? How many in favor of moving the Okay, well, precinct 1, please stand again to be counted. All those in favor in precinct 1, please stand again to be counted. All those opposed to the motion, please stand to be counted. Precinct 1, 5 in favor, 4 opposed. Precinct 2. Precinct 2, 17 in favor, 0 opposed. Precinct 3. Precinct 3, 9 in favor, 2 opposed. Precinct 4. Precinct 4, 10 in favor, 0 opposed. Precinct 5. Precinct 5, 20 in favor, 0 opposed. Precinct 6. Precinct 6, 14 in favor, 0 opposed. Precinct 7. Precinct 7, 18 in favor, 0 opposed. Precinct 8. Precinct 8, 15 in favor, 1 opposed. At large. At large, 15 in favor, 0 opposed. Remote. 1 in favor. I don't even have to count, but I think that the necessary 2/3 has been passed. I'll wait till town clerk. How many got 124? 124 having voted in favor, 7 opposed. Necessary 2/3 has been met. Motion to move the previous question is carried. All those in favor of the motion as presented will please manifest by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried. Article 6. Chief Nelson.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, Mark Nelson, Precinct 7. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $400,000 from the excess and deficiency account, said sum to be spent under the jurisdiction of the fire chief to replace the boiler at the Birch Street Fire Station and 1 rooftop HVAC unit at the Spruce Street Fire Station.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any vote care to be heard?
Mr. Moderator.
Chief Nelson.
Town meeting members, this article is kind of 2 pieces. It's $300,000 for the original boiler at the Birch Street station, and coupled into this is one of the rooftop units across the street at the Spruce Street Fire Station, which is estimated to be $100,000. The boiler at Birch Street was on the capital plan. The rooftop unit's on the capital plan, just not for this year. It failed prematurely. So I urge your support on this article.
Thank you, Chief Nelson. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 7.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, again, Mark Nelson, Precinct 7. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $30,000 from the excess and deficiency account, said sum to be spent under the jurisdiction of the fire chief, to repave the front parking area and side driveway aisle, stopping at the rear parking lot of the Birch Street Fire Station.
A motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Chief Nelson.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, this is phase 2 of a 3-phase project. We were not before you for phase 1. We were able to take care of that project out of budget. With this one, I'm unable to do that, so this takes care of the front parking area at Birch Street, which is original, and the side drive aisle that leads to the rear parking lot, and I hope for your support.
Thank you, Chief Nelson. Does any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 8. Mr. Pillow.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Christopher Pillar, Town Treasurer, Collector, at-large member. I move that the town vote to establish a special purpose stabilization account for the Water Enterprise Fund pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Mr. Pillow.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, consistent with our sewer department and our town departments, this is a savings account essentially being set up. We're not looking to fund it at this time. We're simply just looking to set this up. Our sewer department does have one, and it's used for capital projects mainly. It also will, if needed, stabilize the rates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pillar. Does any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion. I'm going to remind the voters that pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, the establishment of a stabilization fund requires a 2/3 vote. Since no one has spoken opposition, we'll take a voice vote. If that voice vote is not unanimous, then we'll have to take a standing vote. So all those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 9. Motion's been made and seconded to pass over Article 9. It's an attempt to take no action on a article that's been inserted in the warrant. It is debatable. Does any voter care to be heard on the motion to pass over? If not, the question comes upon the motion to pass over. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 10. Chief Tassino.
Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. Chief Tassino from Precinct 4. Article 10. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $175,000 from the excess and deficiency account, said sum to be utilized to supplement the Police Department's 2024 budget, personal services account, 210-5100, to continue the operation of the Family Services Unit, Addiction and Mental Health Response Team.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Recommendation is favorable from the Finance Committee. Any voter care to be heard? Chief Tassino.
Once again, Robbie Tassino, ladies and gentlemen, Precinct 4. I'm going to be quick. At least I'm going to try to be very quick. A couple things I want you to take from this. When I say FSU, I'm talking about the Family Services Unit. When I say POST, I'm talking about the Police Officer Standards and Training. DPH is Department of Public Health. Real quick, the Family Services Unit is a progressive unit. It's one of a kind. And why do I say it's one of a kind? Well, tomorrow I'll be getting up very early, driving into Boston, because the International Chiefs Association from across the globe is meeting in Boston. I typically don't like going to these things, and I would not go, except they called me and wanted me to come in with the Community Impact Director, Amy Leone, to present. Why? Because we're one of the only agencies that have found a way to combat mental health and wellness, addiction, and opioid overdoses. Big statement, true statement. What we did is we came up with a plan to partner police officers with clinicians out in the field. And during police reform, the Post Commission, this is what they want. They want this collaboration with police and mental health clinicians, and they want an aggressive unit that can address this at the street level. We did such a good job. The state took away my money. And I got to give it to them. When they took it away, they did kind of frost my cupcake first. This is really something. Wow, you've really driven down numbers. You've had 0 overdose deaths as of this last year. You've responded to almost 1,500 mental health crisis calls in the field. Amazing, Robbie. We didn't think you could do it. You did it. We're going to cut your funding. And they did this after my fiscal year started, which made myself and everybody in the finance department ecstatic. What else happened? I've been getting phone calls from people at the hospital. You can't let this unit die. Why is the hospital calling me? Because if you're not in healthcare, and I am, 30 years in the back of an ambulance as a paramedic for UMass, healthcare is a dumpster fire, ladies and gentlemen. If it's not, we can take a trip to a couple ERs and you can come to work with me. Why this is so important? Because we bridge the gap for those that struggle with mental health and wellness and the disease of addiction. I came up with the idea of we were treating people as this isolated incident. Addiction is no different than any other disease. And if you don't think it is, you need some mental health and wellness. You can come to my house, we'll hit the speed bag, we'll chase each other around the gym. Okay? I don't drink, I don't have those afflictions. That's not by virtue, folks. I just don't. But since I was 18 years old in the back of an ambulance, I've been treating people with mental health and wellness who struggle with addiction. Half the time to see them at a funeral home, the other half to see them down and out and no chance of recovery. When you leave the hospital currently, they hand you a pamphlet. I don't know. Does anybody ever read pamphlets when they hand it to them? Because I stopped doing that. I used to work in Chinatown. They'd hand them to me all the time, and I don't read them anymore. This service has really changed lives. So much so that tomorrow they want to know what our secret is. And the state was very candid. It's a great program. We just don't have the money, Robbie. There was no shine about it. Oh, do this to do that. You just don't have the money. Now, the good news is we can keep applying for grants and we can keep trying to get money from other resources, and we're going to keep doing that. There are some other people that say that this unit doesn't really serve the people from Milford. I'm here to tell you last week I stood in the ER of Milford Hospital and helped 2 Milford families find placement for their loved one, and these people are the bedrock of Milford, have been here longer than my grandparents, and they were here in World War I. This is something special. So before we all line up and go buy our pickleball paddles, buy our new swimsuits for the pool, or start picking coloring schemes for the new high school, we need to take care of people. This family services unit is very entrenched in the schools as well. They respond to people's houses when an unexpected death and help the living cope with the loss. Where else does that happen? It happens here in Milford. So I urge your support of this. You are saving lives. It's that simple. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Tassino. Does any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Visconti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Visconti, town meeting member from Precinct 8. Now, I'm not stupid. I know you're going to pass this article. But the previous speaker talked about addiction being a disease just like any other disease. It is not. Addiction is by choice. Cancer is not by choice.
Hey. You let the man speak. Go ahead, Mr. Visconti.
Why don't we let the intelligent one have their say? Thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Visconti. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 11. Mr. Villani, excuse me, Attorney Villani.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, Richard Villani, member at large, precinct 6. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $17,410 from the excess and deficiency account, said sum to be utilized to fund the completion of the missing veterans' names from the Vietnam and Korean War monuments within Draper Park.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Mr. Pillar?
Good evening. My name is John Pillar. I live at 22 Elizabeth Road in Milford. I will attempt to give you a brief history as to how this request came about. About 3 to 4 years ago, as the Draper Revitalization Committee was completing their project, a group of people in town approached the Select Board and asked if they could form a Veterans Council. Their mission was to address the needs of the local veterans. It was this joint effort between the Draper Revitalization Committee and the Veterans Council that formed an ad hoc committee named the Post-9/11 War Memorial Committee. Their mission was to find a location for this new memorial, as well as develop the design of the monument. For the past 3 to 4 years, they worked on accomplishing their objective. As they researched the records held at the National Guard headquarters on Maple Street in Milford to qualify veterans for this new memorial, they discovered that approximately 140 names, combined that is, were omitted from the World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and Gulf War Memorial located at Draper Park. Of the 140 names omitted, 60 have been engraved, leaving approximately 80 to be completed, which is the purpose of this request.
Are you finished, Mr. Pillow?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pillow. You can sit down. Are you finished with your presentation?
Would you want me to go sit down?
Well, are you finished? I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Pillar. Does any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Idarola, Precinct 4.
Jay Adirola, Precinct 4. I just have a couple of questions. What would be the requirements? Would you have to be born here in Milford or a resident for a certain amount of time? Do you have to be born here, or do you have to been a resident for a certain amount of time? And does that include, to have your name on there, would you have to be a Vietnam era veteran or to actually have served in Vietnam? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Idarola. Does any have an answer to that question? Mr. Pillar, do you have an answer to that question? Sure.
John Pillar, 22 Elizabeth Road, Milford. If I understand the question that the gentleman asked was, do you have to be born in Milford to qualify to be on the Vietnam Memorial? And the answer is no, but you had to reside in the town, or your home of record on your discharge paper had to be Milford when you entered the service. You had to serve during a war period, and you had to have an honorable discharge.
Thank you, Mr. Pillar. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Pillar. You can be seated again. Okay, Article 12. Chief Nelson.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, Mark Nelson, Precinct 7. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $100,000 from the excess and deficiency account, said sum to be spent under the jurisdiction of the fire chief to repair damage to Engine 5 resulting from a recent collision.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard?
Moderator.
Chief Nelson.
Town meeting members, unfortunately, Engine 5 was damaged during an at-fault accident. No injuries or property damage resulted in this collision, but the truck remains out of service, and we need to get it repaired. I urge your support.
Thank you, Chief Nelson. Any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Visconti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Visconti, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know exactly how it works, but I believe we are self-insured, so I'm wondering why insurance won't cover the repair of the damaged truck. And if not, is there some other insurance that should have covered this? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Visconti. Any other voter care to be heard? Attorney Moody. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, Jerry Moody, Precinct 8. This is not a loss that would be covered by the self-insurance fund. The self-insurance fund isn't bought insurance. It's a fund of money that we have to take care of certain losses. And this kind of loss is not one that would be covered under that fund, which covers many, many other items. The fund is very tight. So no, the only way that these kind of incidents where there's not a third-party liability are handled is by town meeting appropriation or in the budget, as the case may be.
Thank you, Attorney Moody. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 13. Mr. Long.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, I don't know if you can hear me or not. Brian Long, Chair of the Personnel Board. Article 13, I move that the town vote to amend its vote under Article 2 of the May 20, 2024 annual town meeting by adding the position of Waste and Recycling Manager to be set at a salary grade 7 and the position of Assistant Collector to be set at hourly grade 5 under said Article 2.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Long.
Town meeting members, the Personnel Board, in conjunction with Human Resources, reviews requests from department heads for new roles to be added within Article 2 of the annual town meeting. Today's article would amend the May 20th, 2024 Article 2 to add these two positions. Adding these roles would allow the department heads for each position to begin the budgeting and recruitment process associated. The Personnel Board asks for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 14. Motion's been made and seconded to pass over Article 14. Motion to pass over is again an attempt to take no action on an article inserted in the warrant. It is debatable. Does any voter care to be heard on the motion to pass over? Okay, if not, the question comes upon the motion to pass over. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 15. Mr. Mazzucchelli.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, Paul Mazzucchelli, Select Board Member, Precinct 8, 22 Woodridge Road, Article 15. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $58,928 from the excess and deficiency account. Said sum to be utilized to pay the cost items in a collective bargaining agreement between the town of Milford and the Milford Highway, Cemetery, Park Department employee, Local 1156, $12,089 of said sum to be transferred to Parks Department personnel account 650-5110, $36,692 of said sum to be transferred to the Highway Department personnel service account number 421-5110, and $5,000 of said sum to be transferred to the Highway Department's general expense account, and also 421-5300, and $5,147 of said sum to be transferred to the Cemetery Department personnel service account, number 491-5110. Thank you.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded that the town vote to transfer the sum of $58,928 from the excess and deficiency account. Said sum to be utilized to pay the cost items in a collective bargaining agreement between the town of Milford and the Milford Highway, Cemetery, and Park Department's employees, Local 1156. $12,089 is said sum to be transferred to the Parks Department Personal Services account, 650-5110. $36,692 of said sum to be transferred to the Highway Department Personnel Services account, number 421-5110. $5,000 of said sum to be transferred to the Highway Department General Expenses Account, number 421-5300, and $5,147,000 of said sum to be transferred to the Cemetery Department Personal Services Account, number 4915110. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Does any voter care to be heard? Mr. Mazzucchelli.
This article seeks to fund the cost of items contained in a collective bargaining agreement between the town of Milford and the Milford Highway, Cemetery, Parks Department employees. The additional cost is $58,928. This amount will supplement salaries and wages retroactive to July 1st, 2024, and I urge your support for this article. Thanks so much.
Does any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 16.
Mr. Moderator.
Attorney O'Loughlin.
Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, Thomas O'Loughlin, 3 Isaiah Circle. I move that the town vote to authorize the utilization of funds remaining under Article 33 of the October 30th, 2023 special town meeting in the amount of $43,625.50 for the purpose of replacing stair treads at the Milford Police Station.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard?
Mr. Moderator.
Attorney O'Loughlin.
This article seeks to transfer the sum of $43,625 from Article 23 of the 2023 special town meeting to be used to replace stair treads at the police station. At the 2023 special town meeting, members voted to appropriate $82,000 to replace carpeting and flooring at the police station. This project was completed with $43,625 in remaining funds from within the existing original appropriation. We are now seeking to use these funds to replace the stair treads at the police station as they are worn and in need of repair. I urge your support for this article.
Thank you, Attorney O'Loughlin. Does any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 17. Mrs. Abisla.
Town Moderator, town meeting members, Stephanie Abisla, Chair of the Library Trustees. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $375,000 from the excess and deficiency account. Said sum is needed due to increased construction and material costs for funding of the fire suppression project at the Milford Town Library.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Mrs. Abisla.
The library has been working on the fire suppression now for 2 years, and as we do it, the scope of the project at first was replace the heads, and that was going to be an amount that got passed over because it was not sufficient. We now have $170,000 put aside for the project, but in looking, it does not include all the finish work that would now be required for the project. So as we were looking at the project, it would be take the sprinkler heads out, leave a big hole in the ceiling. And so we put all those pieces back together again and had to put it out to bid. And when the bid came back, it was $375,000 additional funds that we would need to start and finish the project, and to also include a clerk of the works. I urge your support on this.
Thank you, Mrs. Abisla. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 18.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, Stephanie Abisla, Chair of the Library Trustees. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $35,000 from the excess and deficiencies account, and said sum be utilized by the Board of Library Trustees to replace damaged and worn library furnishings.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Mrs. Abisla.
We're asking for $35,000 to replace damaged and worn library furnishings. The carpet is pretty much original in certain places that needs to be worn and repaired. We're also looking, there's been a great increase in the use of the library as well. And so furnishings, they've noticed some of the new seating that's been in the library. The children's section also has seen a lot of growth, having some furniture reconfigurations there. And this will allow us to keep the library functioning and keep it up to speed and keep it fresh for use. I urge your support.
Thank you, Mrs. Abisla. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is carried unanimously. Article 19, Mr. Christofouli.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, Scott Christofouli, Chair of the Vernon Grove Cemetery Trustees. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $65,000 from the excess efficiency account, said sum to be spent under the jurisdiction of the Vernon Grove Trustees to replace fencing at the Vernon Grove Cemetery.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Mr. Christofouli.
Thank you. Town meeting members, Mr. Moderator. The fence is over 125 years old. Trees have fallen on it. It's coming out of the ground. We've done some minor repairs, but we really have to replace probably 95% of the fence. So if this article is approved, we will be using that money to replace the fence. I ask for your support on this article.
Thank you, Mr. Christofouli. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 20.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $10,000 from the excess and efficiency account, said sum to be spent under the jurisdiction of Vernon Grove Trustees, to purchase a new landscape trail to transfer lawn maintenance equipment to the Purchase Street Cemetery.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Mr. Christofouli.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, recently we've acquired or taken over the Purchase Street Cemetery, so we do full maintenance on it, which is weekly. We currently have a small trailer that we use to transport all our equipment, which is usually 2 or 3 trips to do it, so we're looking to purchase a larger trailer to do it all in one shot. I ask for your support on this article.
Thank you, Mr. Christofouli. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 21. Mr. Christofouli. Thank
you. Scott Christofouli, Highway Surveyor. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $200,000 from the excess and efficiency account, said sum to be spent under the jurisdiction of the Highway Surveyor to repair and replace the fire sprinkler system located at the Highway Department building.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Mr. Christofouli.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, the need for this article is a replacement of a 40-year-old fire suppression system located at the Highway Department. The system was built in 1985 and has been maintained throughout the years, but has developed substantial rust from the inside out, causing numerous leaks, and flooding in the building. Last spring alone, we fixed 5 different leaks. So we had an inspection done on the system and found that the entire system throughout the building is rotted and needs to be replaced. If approved, replacement will be put on bid and replaced as soon as possible. I urge your support on this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crisafulli. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 22. Busy man.
Last one. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $250,000 from the excess and deficiency account, said sum to be spent under the jurisdiction of the highway surveyor in order to purchase a new multi-purpose dump truck to replace the 1999 dump truck.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Mr. Crisafulli.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, the need for this article is for replacement of a 24-year-old truck, number 11. The truck has frame failure due to substantial rust that has caused separation and cracking. The truck will not pass inspection and is no longer safe to operate. The truck was used for leaf removal, snow plowing, salting, and our day-to-day operations. It would be cost prohibitive to make these repairs at this time on a 24-year-old truck. It is crucial that we replace the truck at this time and maintain safe roads year-round. If approved, we will be replacing the truck with a multi-use truck with similar equipment. This will be used for our day-to-day operations. I ask for your support in this article.
Thank you, Mr. Crisafulli. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 23, Mr. Pillow.
Chris Pilla, Treasurer Collector, at-large member. I move that the town vote to amend Article 40 of the general bylaws of the town and entitled Tax Title Payment Agreements by striking the current Article 40 in its entirety and replacing the same with the following new Article 40. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 62A, the town treasurer is authorized to enter into payment agreements between the treasurer and persons entitled to redeem parcels and tax title. Such agreements shall be before a term of 5 years. All such agreements shall be uniform for the class of tax title. Any such agreement must require minimum payment at the inception of the agreement of 10% of the amount needed to redeem the parcel. During the term of the agreement, the treasurer may not bring an action to foreclose the tax title unless payments are not made in accordance with the schedule set out in the agreement, or timely payments are not made in accordance with the schedule set out in the agreement, or timely payments are not made on other amounts due to the town that are a lien on the same parcel.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Mr. Pillow.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, the current law right now has a maximum payment plan of 5 years and a minimum deposit of 25% of the tax title amount. In July of 2024, the governor signed her budget, and included in the budget was several sections regarding tax title payments and regarding tax title foreclosures. In the news, you may not heard the term excess equity or equity theft being thrown out there. Her budget has incorporated all these new laws that come forth to try to help homeowners in that. The new law that she signed allowed the treasurer to enter into agreements up to 10 years with a 10% down payment, and allowed the treasurer collector to waive any interest as he or she seemed fitting. In our current bylaw, we do not have the waiving of any interest, and we decided to keep that the same way. We also decided to increase our term limit from 3 to 5 years to try to help the homeowners. I can tell you that since we put this into place back in 2017, 2018, we've had over 30 payment plans. We've had 27 successful payment plans where people have now removed the lien off their property. We've only had 3 that failed and resulted in us taking them to foreclosure, but we ended up working those out in other matters. And currently on the books right now, we have 12 ongoing. Unfortunately, the 12 ongoing still have to follow the current bylaw, but anybody else coming into tax title and who wants to enter into a payment plan can follow these new ones. I urge your support on this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pillar. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 24. Motion's been made and seconded that the town vote to pass over Article 24. Again, a motion to pass over is an attempt to take no action on an article inserted in the warrant. It is debatable. Does any voter care to be heard on the motion to pass over? If not, the question comes upon the motion to pass over. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 25. Thank you. Town Council Murray.
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $225,000 from the excess and deficiency account, said sum to be spent under the jurisdiction of the Board of Health for consultants, contractors, or personnel to assist in relation to enforcement of health laws relating to overcrowding in the town of Milford, said sum to be overall utilized by the Board of Health in connection with other town departments as necessary to enforce health laws, zoning, and other laws in order to alleviate overcrowding problems within the town of Milford.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
The Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard?
Mr. Moderator.
Attorney Murray.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I'm sure many of you know, we are experiencing an overcrowding problem in the residential sections of the town of Milford. And it's really happening on both ends, primarily of the landlord-tenant relationship, but also in regular single-family ownership as well. We have owners, landlords who are setting up illegal apartments, segmenting the property for residential use, which is not otherwise intended for that. Similarly, on the other end, we have tenants who go into apartment houses unbeknownst to landlords and erect their own walls and other obstructions to create a number of rooms. All of this results in more people being in the property than the state sanitary code allows. It's been brought to the attention of the town by a number of sources, primarily police and fire, as they're the ones that are in properties for domestic calls and inspections. They're seeing a lot of illegal electrical connections, hot plates, other items that are in there that could cause fires and certainly constitute health and safety hazards. Now, the town of Milford does have the tools to deal with this kind of situation, and the primary tool is Article 37 of the town's general bylaws. Adopted in 2005, that was a time when we similarly experienced an overcrowding situation throughout the town. And what Article 37 does, briefly, it puts under the jurisdiction of the health department the requirement for anybody looking to rent out a residential unit to register with the health department of their property and also allow the property to be inspected to determine the square footage. Under the state sanitary code, square footage defines how many individuals can legally be in a property. I think it's one person per 150 square feet of a residence. For several years, this tool worked very effectively. There were separate consultants and independent contractors that essentially administered it. It eventually flowed to regular functions of the health department, but again, for many years, generally worked well. The last several years, it has kind of fallen by the wayside, and I would dare to say that probably the primary reason is COVID. The health department was certainly overwhelmed during those 2 years with a number of other concerns. The registrations didn't occur as frequently as they should have. The measurements probably didn't occur as well as they should have. And concurrently with that, we have had an influx of people into the community, really almost creating sort of a perfect storm at this point. What we've been doing the last year and a half is to work collaboratively, all of the town departments, building, zoning, health, fire, police, to look at the violations throughout the town. The initial focus was on the sports courts that had existed in a number of properties. We were able to get 3 civil injunctions against the major sports courts. That seemed to have worked so well that a couple of weeks ago, one of the owners who was going to have one of these events proactively reached out to Town Hall, met with officials, and understood what the law is, and that event didn't go forward. Now that same effort needs to go to these apartments and residential units. So what this article seeks to do is to request a sum of money which would be then put out to bid for a consultant to enter the town and go forward, reinitiate the Article 37 process in terms of reaching out to all of the residential landowners who are renting, making sure the registrations and the payment fees are up to date, but more importantly, giving the town the eyes and the ears into these properties by getting out and doing the measurement inspections. From there, information filters back to the town departments as to what violations exist in a particular property. There may be fire violations, which obviously would go to the fire department, building and zoning to that department, health as well. And through that collaborative and collective effort, get the message out and prevent the kind of overcrowding that we're seeing happening in the town right now. It's not certain at this point how much work the consultant would do or not do. It's really an effort to initiate the process, reinvigorate it, take it off of the health department's plate, and then also establish a set of guidelines, procedures to go forward and make sure that this Article 37 does not get forgotten about in the future. So I ask for your support on this article.
Thank you, Attorney Murray. Does any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Consigli.
David Consigli, Town Meeting Member, Zoning Board. This article is probably the most ambitious article we've seen since the 05 article. We need this. I recently, over the years, many years, have seen some horrific conditions. Most recently, I was involved in a property back about 3 weeks ago, and I worked with the Board of Health. There was a duplex-style building. 15 people living on one side, 15 people living on the other, people living in the basement, building walls and separating dining rooms to turn them into bedrooms. In addition to that, this particular case, someone was leasing the entire complex and not living there. The cabinets were written on who was in what room. Hot plates, refrigerators, many people in one room. This was just the break of it. We've got to get this under control. This is unhealthy. This is a fire trap. Someone is going to die. And this does happen. And bedrooms are even added in deed-restricted 2-bedroom condominium complexes. We've seen that. So we need to support the Board of Health, the Building Department, the Zoning Department to get this right and get it corrected before someone loses their life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Consigli. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 26, Mr. Zakili. Thank you.
Matthew Zakili, School Committee Chair, at-large member. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $60,000 from the excess and deficiency account, said sum to be spent under the jurisdiction of the school committee, to purchase a van for specialized transportation.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 27.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Walsh. Oh, Attorney O'Loughlin, excuse me. He's just a...
Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, Thomas O'Loughlin, 3 Isaiah Circle, Precinct 5. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $102,328 from the line item 174-5110 to line item 122-5110. Vote is voted under Article 4 of the May 20th, 2024 annual town meeting.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard?
Mr. Moderator.
Attorney O'Loughlin.
Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, this article seeks the transfer of $102,328 from the Planning Department budget to the Select Board budget. These funds were appropriated at the May annual town meeting as part of the operational budget. The Select Board is seeking to fill the Assistant Administrator position. This position will replace the vacant Assistant Town Administrator / Economic Development Director position. It has become clear that due to the growth of the town's population, an increase in staffing and budget, that an Assistant Town Administrator position is needed to serve all of the day-to-day interests of the residents of this community. Towns and cities with populations and budgets of similar size to that of Milford have a town administrator, assistant town administrator position to ensure the day-to-day operations. The assistant town administrator will work with the town administrator to investigate complaints, respond to increasing resident inquiries, respond to increase in public records requests, as well as assist with preparation of the operating budget and manage workers' compensation claims and insurance claims as presented. Additionally, they will work with procurement requirements and serve as the acting town administrator in the absence of the town administrator, and will work with the town planner as it relates to economic development.
Thank you, Attorney O'Loughlin. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 28. Attorney Moody.
Jerry Moody, Precinct 6. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to petition the legislature for special legislation to provide for the grant of an additional license for the sale of all alcoholic beverages not to be consumed on the premises, said license to be located at 93 Prospect Street, parenthetically Shaw's Plaza, as set forth below, and further that the legislature may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill unless the Select Board approves amendments to the bill before enactment by the legislature, which amendments shall be within public purposes of said petition, or take any other action relative thereto,
Motion's been, yes. I'll ask Attorney Mooney, is the remainder of the same exactly as appears in the warrant? It's exactly the same. Does any member object to dispensing with the reading of, hold on. Does any member object to dispensing with the reading of the entire motion? Okay, then the motion's made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Refer to sponsor.
Finance Committee recommendation is refer to sponsor. I'm going to recognize Attorney Brian Falk, who is the attorney representing 93 Prospect Street, LLC, to give a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Brian Falk, 19 Redwood Drive. I'm here as a resident, but as the moderator mentioned, I'm also here as the attorney representing the petitioner, 93 Prospect Street, Milford, LLC. I urge you to support this article for an additional retail alcohol license in Milford. The LLC was formed by my client, Samir Patel. Samir is a Franklin resident and a small business owner. He and his family operate Denny's Liquors in Bellingham, Marlborough, and North Attleboro. Samir is looking to open Milford Wine and Spirits in the former Walgreens space in the Shaw's Plaza. I want to be very clear, this is not Shaw's seeking a license. This is for the vacant Walgreens space next door. I understand there was a mailer that went out over the weekend that indicated that Shaw's was seeking this license. That's not the case. So this would be a new store, Milford Wine and Spirits. We believe this would be a great addition to the Shaw's Plaza, a benefit to shoppers on the west side of town. If you've ever been to Samir's store, Denny's in Marlborough, newly opened in the Hannaford Plaza, this new store in Milford will be very similar to Denny's in Marlborough. This will be a destination store with a wide variety of beverages. Other than Denny's in Marlborough, the closest comparison is probably Julio's in Westboro. It's a store where shoppers go to stock up or to browse the aisles for hard-to-find varieties. The store would have over 800 varieties of craft beer, 1,500 types of wine. It's not set up as a convenience-style store. The store will have tastings with brewers and seasonal special events. As you may know, the Walgreens space has been empty for about a year. In this market, there are not many potential tenants for a space of this size, which is about 11,000 square feet. We think this type of destination store would be a very good fit for the plaza compared to other potential users and help revitalize the plaza. We understand that there are some smaller liquor stores near the Shaw's Plaza and that some folks are concerned about competition on those stores. We think Milford is big enough to support a variety of stores of different sizes. Milford Wine and Spirits would occupy a different part of the market than small boutique stores. Samir is looking to bring a new shopping option to this side of town, not to put anyone out of business. And we have seen that to be the case. I worked with Samir to license the Denny's Liquors in Marlborough, which opened a little over a year ago. There were two small liquor stores in Marlborough within a half mile of that location on the same road. A year after Samir's larger store opened, both of those two smaller stores are still in business and doing well. Approval of this article would be the beginning of a lengthy public process in town and before the state. After a vote tonight, this would go to the legislature for review and approval. At that point, the decision comes back to Milford. Samir would need to apply for a license from the Select Board, which would have a public hearing. License would then go to the state ABCC for review. Samir may then need site plan approval from the Planning Board, again with a public meeting process. We think a special act to authorize a new license at this location would be an improvement to the Shaw's Plaza, bring new customers to existing businesses in the area, and we think this would be a great option for Milford shoppers. Happy to address your questions, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Attorney Falk. Any other voter care to be heard? I'll recognize Mr. Allegrezza.
Greg Allegrezza, Precinct 8. We missed out on a potential to get substantial tax revenue from voting down dispensaries. Milford has enough liquor stores to supply the whole state. I don't believe another liquor store is something that this town really needs. So for that reason, I would suggest we vote no on this.
Clapping is not necessary. No applause. Just listen to what the speaker has to say. Thank you.
I'm pretty good, though.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
You have your moments. The voter in Precinct 3.
Earl Wagner, Precinct 3.
I just want to say this. I happen to agree with this gentleman that spoke just before the first gentleman said, there's not going to hurt the little man. What he's talking about, there's 3 little men within a half a mile. And I want you to think about this. Every time we drop a little man, I'll bet you people don't understand. After Prohibition, what town got the first legal alcohol beer license to sell? In Milford, Massachusetts, historically. You know where it is? It's called Hickey's. These big people come in, they don't care about Hickey's, they don't care about Milford. You should care about your own people first, and then worry about the other people go someplace else to make money. Okay, let's take care of our own. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Rossetti.
Hi, Mr. Cityfield Pond Road, Precinct 5. The first speaker, the attorney for the proposed development, made a couple statements. One, this is not going to be Julio's. Two, talked about West Side shoppers needing new alternatives. I'm a West Side homeowner and shopper. I think the 3 liquor stores in a half-mile radius, suffice our needs just fine. Lastly, there was a comment that was made about the redevelopment of the vacant Walgreens building. I don't oppose this because it's an additional liquor license. I just think it's bad planning. So you have 3 liquor stores right across the street from each other, West Street, and then Max Package, and now this. We've seen over the last year some of these vacant parcels, when given the right time, lead to good projects. So how long was it vacant over Bed Bath & Beyond and Staples in that area? And now the town is getting something that, according to the Facebook page, everyone's excited about in a Trader Joe's. You're going to have probably a pretty big announcement coming soon for the Best Buy building itself. Have a new restaurant going in. So these things take time. But there was a large parcel across from the hospital over where Francis Flowers was that just sold. That will eventually be redeveloped. This parcel will be filled with something. Why are we settling for another liquor store when we already have 2 in the exact proximity? So again, not opposed to the license conceptually. It's just from a municipal planning standpoint, it's just bad planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rossetti. Any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Visconti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Town meeting members, Mike Visconti, town meeting member from Precinct 8. Members, please keep in mind you're here representing the residents and the taxpayers of your precinct. A little competition never hurt anybody. However, it does help many people. With as you've seen tonight, prices for goods and services skyrocketing. Okay, a little competition will benefit the citizens of Milford tremendously. Think about how the pain will be eased a little bit when you pop the cork on that bottle of wine that you're having with a nice candlelight dinner with your loved one, knowing that you got a better deal because there was competition in this town, okay? Please approve this article. It will help every resident in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Visconti. Any other vote? Mrs. Bontempo, Precinct 4.
Like Douglas MacArthur, I did return. Ladies and gentlemen, town meeting members, Mr. Moderator, I want to make a comparison.
Excuse me, Mrs. Bontempo.
To the, I
Can,
want to
can
make.
you just state your name for everybody
Oh.
and your precinct? Thank you.
Oh. I'm sorry. Evelyn Bontempo, 3 West Walnut Street, Precinct 4.
Thank you.
All right. This is for a liquor license. I am going to make the comparison of being brought up behind my father's drugstore at 3 Water Street. My father moved from New England Telephone, which is now a vacant Milford National Bank and Trust Company, in 1946, and bought an old barn where we lived on the top floor, and then he added the drugstore. And everyone said, "You're going to fail. You're off of Main Street." My mom and my dad worked very hard. The 5 children worked hard. They were successful. And as the years passed, it all changed. How many private, small pharmacies are there in Milford today? Walgreens came in, CVS came in, Rite Aid came in. The small independent pharmacies could not compete with these big companies. They had coupons. They could order medications and pills by the hundreds of thousands. We didn't have the warehouses. I don't believe we need this big new liquor store. It will hurt the small independent drugstores, liquor stores. Shaw's won't be hurt because Hopedale and Mendon and Upton all come to Shaw's because those towns don't have a big supermarket. Am I drifting away from what I'm supposed to be saying?
You're okay.
Okay. Well, anyways, I oppose this article. Thank you. Thank you for your patience with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bontempo. Any other voter care to be heard? I'm going to recognize the gentleman way in the back there. And then I'll get to the other attorney back there.
Hello, my name is Richard Sear. I'm from Precinct 5. I worked at Mac Package, which will be across the street from this new liquor store, for 2 years. And I was there when Andy and Danny took over, and I stayed with them. And I made sure that they worked hard, and they cared, and they did. My sister actually met her husband at Mac Package. He bought her a 6-pack of beer. It was illegal, but this store is a part of Milford. You can't tell me that putting a liquor store directly across the street from it isn't going to hurt them, and it's not an attack on their revenue and their livelihood. I have never, and I love beer, some of you know that, I have never walked out of a liquor store with a handful of beer, saw a liquor store across the street, and been like, I could use some more beer. Let's do it. This is ridiculous. It's silly. It reminds me of, if y'all remember Nap Video, Nap Video down by McDonald's. They put a Blockbuster across the street next to Papagino's. And Blockbuster put a bowl with a sign that said, "Cut up your Nap Video card. We'll give you a free soda and a movie." Nap Video went out of business. Mac Package, West Street Liquors, they will probably go out of business. You're going to be trading one empty building for another. And also the plaza that Nap Video was in has never really been the same. I know Garden Restaurant's in there, the TV station, but I don't really look at it. I used to go there all the time. So you're going to be damaging Mac Package, you're going to be hurting Garden Pizza, you're going to be hurting Subway. It's too much. It's too much. And lastly, do we want to be the town known for having a liquor store across the street from a liquor store? What does that say to people looking to move to Milford about our priorities, what we believe in? Liquor? It's in poor taste. We have enough liquor stores. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other voter care to be heard? In the back, I'm going to recognize. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Attorney M. again, and I represent some liquor store owners, businesses here in Milford. Section 17 of Chapter...
Hold on, Attorney. What is your address, please, your residence?
It's 165 West Shore Drive, Marblehead. I'm not a resident of Milford.
Okay, she's not a resident of Milford. Requires the unanimous consent of the town meeting members. Is anybody opposed to the attorney speaking? Hearing no opposition, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me the time to speak.
You have to speak up, please.
I'm just shorter than everybody. Section 17 of Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws limits the number of liquor licenses, and specifically a license for all alcohol beverages, according to the size of the population in every town. Milford has about 30,379 residents with about 60 alcohol licenses in our town. That's about 1 per 5,000 residents. We are saturated with alcohol businesses. In fact, within a 1-mile radius of the new proposed business, there are 9 stores that provide alcohol or wine beverages in several capacities. There's a reason for these quotas, and the reason is to ensure that enough businesses receive a license to serve the town and to ensure that the market is not saturated with businesses that sell alcohol and liquor, to ensure that these business owners that we just heard now can actually provide a livelihood for their families, employees, which are often residents of this town. In fact, in 2022, the Select Board agreed to do a swap of liquor license between several businesses and agreed to upgrade another business because there were licenses that were open. Asking a town in an annual town meeting to make a special request to the state for another liquor license, which the town should not have, in order to give it to a specific business is not fair dealing and not fair business. It's also not good planning, as somebody just mentioned. If the town agrees to request such a thing from the state and the state grants a license, this license should be open to any business, not just for a specific business. If we allow this to happen, we're basically allowing an unfair leverage to wealthy businesses and owners that have a lot of influence in the town. Having an extra license for the amount allotted for the town will not benefit the town residents, nor will it benefit the local businesses. As you heard, we already have enough liquor businesses in this town. A town meeting is supposed to be a place to make decisions for the entire town and to benefit everyone and not to benefit one business owner. If this business owner wants a liquor license, they should approach it just like any other business. They should acquire it. Some acquired it for $17,000 in 2022. Some acquired a license for $57,000 in the year of 2016. The business owner should acquire a license just the way that all other business owners had to do that up until now. If there is a difference in residents and the number of residents have gone up, you can go to the state, you can tell the state that we have more residents and then we need another liquor license, and then that liquor license will be open to any business that wishes to acquire the liquor license. This is not a place to give the benefit and to give a liquor license for one specific business. I urge you to vote no on this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Rasmussen.
Peter Rasmussen, Precinct 1. I think that if a business owner thinks that he'll make some money opening a business here, we should not be in the way of that. By the way, this is also on the ballot. If you haven't voted yet in the upcoming election, you will see exactly that on the ballot. And I don't think we should, at this point, be in the way of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other voter care to be heard? The gentleman in the back.
Good evening, town meeting members. My name is Tarak Patel. I live at 14 Rollington Drive, Milford. Article 28 proposes a new liquor license at 93 Prospective, which is located at close proximity to almost 9 similar businesses that offers the similar product and services. Current business owners and the establishment has been in our town almost a decade. There's been part of our community for a very long time. They have supported the local fundraising, local sports teams, police association, fire association. My own son's team was sponsored by the basketball team was sponsored by the local jeans variety, Mac Package Store, Milford Package Store. All those people have supported, and luckily that year their team won. Well, apart from that, let's consider that it's the public safety. We have enough OUI cases coming into the town. Police department already have so much things in their pallets, and we don't want to add more. So considering the public safety and loyalty to our local local stores, I request to all the town meeting members to oppose and say no to the Article 28. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other voter care to be heard? Way in the back. Then I'll get to you, Mr. Long.
Good evening. The Honorable Milford Select Board members, the respectable precinct members, police chief, town manager.
Excuse me, sir. Can you please state your name and your address where you live?
Yes, sir. I was going to do after that.
Just do it first, please.
Okay. My name is John Abbey Murray, and I live in Uxbridge 43 Oak Street.
Okay, Mr. Abbey Murray is not a resident of the town of Milford, not a registered voter in the town of Milford. It requires the unanimous consent of the members to speak. Does anybody object to Mr. Abbey Murray speaking? If not, you have the floor, sir. Go ahead.
Do I start all over again?
Yep, you can start over again.
Thank you. The Honorable Milford Select Board member, the respectable precinct member, police chief, town manager, and a respectable citizen of Milford. Mr. Moderator, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is John Abbey Murray, and I'm the owner-operator of Countryside Liquor Centrals in Central Street. I've been running my establishment with my family for over 24 years. This establishment has been backbone of support and substance of my family and me. Though I'm not a resident of Milford, but I truly feel like my home after the many days and years spent here. It deeply saddened and worries me to know that small businesses such as mine are slowly being made obsolete due to larger, financially stronger entities opening on almost every street corner. So I'm deeply rooted and committed in this community. The threat of my livelihood being completely uprooted and overturned is lurking at my door. As we all know, small businesses are disappearing because of all the big corporations running them out of business, but I never felt that way in Milford. Small businesses in town are very deeply rooted within the community. Owning a small business in these days are a matter of survival. I served with the Army in Iraq for 3 years, and I did 54 combat missions, all recorded, earning me the Commander's Award from Department of the Army. And I served with the Massachusetts National Guard Yankee Division 211 MP Battalion. But it was a different type of survivor that I'm facing here. It was a matter of life and death, but now it is a matter of keeping my head above water to support my family and myself. For the last few years, many liquor licenses were granted, and now we are expecting a big store to open next to Shaw's Supermarket as a Prospect Street LLC, I believe. The owners petitioned the state to get the new license, which they own multiple stores in the area. The proposed store is located within 500 to 1,000 yards from 6 stores: Max Package, Milford Package, West Street Liquor, AD Liquor, Water Street Market, and Jeans Variety. 5 of these stores combined won't equal the size of the new proposed store. What it means uneven competition. Max Package is just across the street from the proposed location. Not far from there, there's a Hopedale Package run by a sweet lady who is a widower, works 6 days a week trying to survive. Ladies and gentlemen, the town is saturated with liquor licenses, and I don't think we need an extra one. I beg you to carefully consider the granting of this license, as it's certainly threatening me and many other small store owners in this area very existence. If this store is allowed to open, it could well be the abrupt ending of the livelihood I have built all these years. I and others have worked tirelessly all these years to make living and a life, and I plead with you not to consider the granting of another liquor store in this town of Milford that will put many at a crippling disadvantage. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the time of consideration this evening. I truly appreciate letting me talk.
Thank you. Mr. Long? No? The voter in, or yeah, back in the back there. I don't think that's a precinct, but.
Hi, I'm Rose Spalding, 426 North Washington Street, North Attleboro.
Okay, again, we have somebody that is not a resident of the town or registered voter in the town of Milford. Requires an unanimous consent of this body. Does anybody object? Well, then I'm going to call a 3-minute recess to allow her to speak. So that if you don't want to listen to her speak, you can mosey out in the back. But we're going to take a little 3-minute recess. Go ahead, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. My name is Rose. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I am no longer a resident in Milford, but I am still a business operator in Milford. And I'm just here really not to tell you anything that you haven't heard already, but just to reiterate to you the damage that this huge store is going to do to the little guy. I operate for the little guy. We all know what happens. It's a little overreaching at this point, I guess, but I just encourage you all to come together, stay together, and support your little businesses in town.
Thank you. The meeting's back in order. Mr. Johnson? Do you want to speak?
Greg Johnson, Precinct 3, 20 Howard Street, Milford. I've heard lots of persuasive arguments on both sides, but to consider, I've heard a lot of people and a lot of feeling about this, but I keep hearing arguments against it are about the big box coming in. But that's not what this is about. This is about a guy who's got 2 other shops, so it's another little box. It might be a bigger footprint, and I grant you I would be threatened by it too if I was in that business. But that's competition, as we've heard from other people. We shouldn't be afraid of it. It's a rough game sometimes, but we're going to have more DUIs in this town because of it. A new liquor store, I doubt that. We might have less business at one place or another. It'll shift around. But that's actually a really good location. If you were going to put a store, that's where I'd want to move to if I was in that business. So do what you will, but let's not conflate the thing. Let's not go after this big box store that isn't actually the issue here. It's another mom and pop shop that just happens to have 2 other locations not presently in this town. Think about it.
Thank you. Any other voter care to be heard? Mr. Levine. Mr. Levine. Mr. Levine has moved the previous question. His attempt to shut off debate. It's not debatable. It requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of moving the previous question will please rise and remain standing until counted by the monitors. All those opposed to moving the previous question will please rise and remain standing until counted by the monitors. All those opposed. Okay. Precinct 1. Stand up, please. 9 in favor, 2 opposed. Precinct 1. Precinct 2. Precinct 2, 17 in favor, 0 opposed. Precinct 3. 7 in favor, 2 opposed. Precinct 3. Precinct 4. Precinct 4, 9 in favor, 1 opposed. Precinct 5. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, can you just be quiet so I can hear what the numbers are? Thank you. Again, Precinct 5. Precinct 5, 18 in favor, 2 opposed. Precinct 6. Precinct 6, 13 in favor, 0 opposed. Precinct 7. Precinct 7, 18 in favor, 0 opposed. Precinct 8. Precinct 8, 15 in favor, 1 opposed. At large. At large, 10 in favor, 3 opposed. And remote. Remote is opposed to passing the previous question. Okay. 6, 8, 26, 34. What do you got? I got 9 opposed. You got 12? 4, 6. Yep. What was that number again, please? 116 in favor, 12 opposed. The necessary 2/3 has been met. So we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of a new special legislation for a new special legislation to petition the legislature for special legislation to provide for the grant of an additional license for the sale of all alcoholic beverages to be consumed on premises. Said license to be located at, not to be consumed on premises. Said license to be located at 93 Prospect Street. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The motion is defeated. Article 29. Mr. Mazzucchelli. Thank you.
I mean, it could still open. They could just have to buy a liquor license from someone else that's not using theirs.
Wrote the road walking out on me.
Okay, folks, we still have 2 articles to go, so let's...
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, Paul Mazzucchelli, 22 Woodridge Road, Precinct 8. Article 29, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $90,000 from the excess and deficiency account, said sum to be spent under the jurisdiction of the Select Board and to be utilized for engineering, consulting, and legal expenses in relation to the cleanup of environmental hazards on town property at the Birch Street Fire Station site.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Recommendation is favorable from the Finance Committee. Any vote care to be heard? Mr. Mazzucchelli.
Right here. Thanks. Thank you. In May 2024, the Department of Environmental Protection notified the town of Milford that they believe that PFAS contamination encountered at 40B Birch Street property migrated from fire suppression foams used at the abutting Birch Street Fire Station burn building. The town is now required to investigate the contamination and submit a status report to DEP by June 2025. We have retained Haley and Aldridge, an environmental consultant, to provide preliminary reports in a proposal to complete work for the required 2025 status report submittal. The estimated cost for the consultant for this work is $90,000, and we expect to request additional funds next year to complete the next phase of remediation. I urge you to support this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzucchelli. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Article 30, Mr. Taylor.
Town meeting members, Zachary Taylor, Finance Director, at-large member. Article 30, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $2,757,267 from the excess and deficiency account. Said sum to be added to the town stabilization accounts. $1,757,267 to be added to Fund 8300 and $1 million to be added to Fund 8325.
Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Favorable.
Finance Committee recommendation is favorable. Any voter care to be heard? Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Moderator, you heard the presentation from FinCom Chairman. It's for all of those reasons, not to mention it will well position this community for the challenges to come. I urge your support on this article.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other voter care to be heard? If not, the question comes upon the motion as presented. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. What is the pleasure of the meeting? Can I have a motion to dissolve the warrant, please? Thank you, Mr. Long. It's not debatable. All those in favor will manifest by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously. Will the monitors please bring up their second attendance sheets? Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. They already left. Boy, they're out of here quicker than anybody else. Thank you, Mike. Always a pleasure. Okay?